right. Well, I'm Tiffany. Nice to meet you guys. So this is kind of understanding prelims, title reports, which I think are very, very important. Um, I'm not sure where you guys are at in your real estate worlds, but so I'm going to kind of go through this, but I think, kind of in my own little role of it, my own little speaking, rather than following I'm not just going to read it to you. Um, so do you guys understand what a title report is? A title report is a report that we offer for the condition of the property. What basically the condition of the property is for us to insure it. So you can see the history of the property, the chain of title, anything that affects the ownership on the property, anything that we need to clear on the property. So I strongly always encourage people to really pay attention to the title reports. You really will learn a lot. I've done this for 25 years now, and I can tell you I have seen so many different things on a title report. I mean, they can be really ugly and they can be very simple. So, and there's a lot of things sometimes, even to this day, that I'll see on a title report that is not something that I've ever seen before, or it's handled differently than it was 15 years ago or 10 years ago. So it's always good to pay attention, and I'm always call me if you have any questions, if you don't know what it is, or if you just question anything on a title report. It's really, really important. But so this first page, which is, sorry, what is a title report? An offer to issue a policy of title insurance covering a particular estate or interest in land. So this is just explaining what the purpose of that is. Again, things that might come up, exceptions that may point out potential problems. Let's see. Again, review the title report is what it says. I already said, sorry. When should a title report be ordered? Some people will order a title report prior when you first get the listing because you think there might be something on there. When a contract goes into escrow, they're immediately ordered once you guys do actually send us the report. I encourage, like, if you have issues on the property that you think might be on there, we can always look at the property and get a title report ahead of time. It's really up to you guys. I know some people pre-open and some people don't. Yeah. And it says, right. So let me go past these pages. So it says here, preparing of the report is just where we prepare it. You're going to get a report back from our It's saying here when you order it that it could take up to 3 days. Our title reports are usually 24 hours to 2 days. If it's a commercial property or an agricultural property, those can actually take a little longer. So they're not always in a day or two. I've had actually, if they're really extensive, they can be a week or so. Those are usually properties that haven't been searched in a long time. So there's a lot more that they have to go through. And let's go actually to a title report. So this is what our title reports look like, the first page. This is basically telling you what the title insurance is, that the purpose of this is for us to issue a title policy. This is just kind of a disclaimer that's on our title reports. And it'll outline all the exceptions in the actual report. Page 1 of a title report. So always on our title report, in the top where it says B, that will be always your escrow officer's information. We'll always have it'll have our information. It'll have the escrow number. Here it has a loan number. That's not always on the title report. So sorry. Then we will always have in that underneath the escrow officer area in number B, right below the escrow officer information, we are always going to list who opened the order. So is it a listing agent, a selling agent, or a mortgage broker? That's who usually will show up in that area. D will be the property address. Now, for the property address, I always recommend that you do pay attention to those. We do have properties that sometimes are The city can be two different names, so that can present an issue when the appraiser goes to do the actual appraisal. And usually you find out later on. And just make sure that it's spelled correctly. There are a couple streets like in Vacaville, like Camellia is actually one L, and a lot of people think it's two. There's actually conflicting information recorded on properties for that, but it is one L. So it's always something to kind of look at. And then there's number D, effective date. So this title report, when it is issued, is stating that we have searched the property to that date. So that date will always be 2 to 3 weeks behind today's date. So if I got a report today, it's going to be 2 to 3 weeks behind. And that's why when we go through an escrow, 3 weeks, it's usually 2, 3 weeks behind. Now we're a month later, we're getting ready to close, and we do what's called a date down. So when our title goes to record something, we will basically look at all the records to that actual date before we can actually record. So if you ever have a seller or client who thinks something might be out there, or they're not always forthcoming with the information, or maybe you feel something's out there, you can always call your escrow officer. I have ways of searching things that I can just look it up to yesterday's date. So I like to research. I really do, detective. So you can find things. So if you kind of think you ever have a client that, I don't know, I think something's wrong or they're talking about something, we can look and run their names. And if they had IRS or state or something, we can always find it. But there have been times, especially when we had a lot of short sales and things going on with the economy years ago, we would be in an escrow and then a month had gone by, and then all of a sudden we go to do a date down and a tax lien showed up, or just something came up, another lien, which creates a problem because now we have to deal with it. We have to figure it out. And sometimes it's not so quick to deal with. So if you ever have that feeling, just question it. And we can look at it. And if there is nothing, yeah. And then section E, where it's airing over, that is telling basically what type of title insurance that we are issuing. So there's two listed. In this case, that is a homeowner's policy, meaning the buyer is going to get a policy of title insurance that's going to ensure them there's no liens, judgments, anything that affects their ownership for the lifetime they own the property from prior to their ownership. So basically that policy of title insurance is good for the rest of their ownership. If something did come up, let's say 5 years from now, and they go to sell the property, they'd want to come back to Fidelity if something did come up that was prior to them owning, because we insured that policy for them. If that makes sense. So if you bought the house in 2005 and there was something on there from 2004, you shouldn't have to deal with that, correct? Because you bought your title insurance. So you always want to go back to your title company. And then the ALTA loan policy, that is the lender's title insurance. So that ensures your lender, that the lender is in first position, that there's no other mortgages in front of them. And then F, oh, I'm so sorry. It's very touchy. F. So this is the type of ownership that you're going to own on a piece of property. This is saying the estate property would either be a fee title or an estate title. That's just saying basically a fee title is the highest ownership you can have in a property. If you are purchasing like a condo, you would have a condo interest in that property. So it basically is your type of ownership that you're going to buy into this property. Next. So this is again, same page. And this is just stating over number G is our title information. So some title companies, you might have an escrow information and you might have a title company information. So you might have two different numbers. Those are more the lenders want to know that. I've never seen this, honestly. Number H, it's saying identifying the state. I apologize. I've never seen that, Ben. H, identify state and marketing center number. I guess that's our escrow number. It looks a little different than our actual one. I apologize. And then number two, number I is explaining for number two on the title report on that first page. That is your vesting. So that is very important. That's where you want to look to see who is your vested owner, who is on that property. A lot of times we get contracts that might have one person's name on it and maybe they're in a trust, or maybe the party's deceased and there's only one of them. So always very important to check that. I've had escrows where people have gone to sell properties and they didn't realize it, but there was actually a third person on title that no one knew, and that person was like in another state that they hadn't talked to in years. So really, really important to kind of just pay attention to your vesting. I will also call it out if we see a contract and then we're missing a name, but it's always good for you guys to be our double eyes as well. J is talking about the description of the land. So right here is saying, see attached legal description, which is going to be your next page. This is describing the property. So do you guys know the differences? A lot of people don't really realize this, but you have a APN number, a tax ID number, and then you have a legal description. So a tax ID number is just a number that the county assigns the property to pay taxes. So you can have one piece of property with 2 APNs or 3 APNs. It doesn't mean that it's 2 different properties or 3 different properties. It means that portions of the property are taxed differently. So like one might be agricultural, one might be residential. So that sometimes people get a little confused with that. But the legal description is important because the legal description is what identifies it in the county on the maps. So you'll usually have one that says lot, and then it'll say block or lot in subdivision, blah, blah, blah. And a little trick, it's not going to say it on here, but something to tell you guys. A lot of people don't know how to look at a legal description and show the difference between a condo and a PUD. So there's 2 different ways, and you can look at a legal description and you'll figure it out. So if you guys see a legal description like this that says lot number, and it just says lot number, such and such subdivision, that is a single family residence. So it would be considered a PUD. If you guys see a legal description that says a proportional interest, like 5 of 52 or 100 of this, and it talks about proportions, that is a condo. So a lot of people get those questions when you guys are on the weekend and you're looking at maybe you're on a title profile and you pull up a copy of the deed. If you look at the grant deed and look at that legal description, you can figure it out, and you don't have to wait for the escrow officer to look at the title to the property. But so again, a legal description just identifies the property in the county. The next page, this is going to be your exceptions to the property. So this is exceptions that we're going to list everything we found basically on this piece of property. Now, number 1 is always going to be a disclaimer about the upcoming tax year. We always just says the next tax year is going to be pending because the escrow may keep going and it may not come out for another, or you're in that time period zone where maybe the new bill is going to come out. Then items number 2, and it could be 2, 3, 4, but number 2 is always going to identify what taxes are due. So in this case, we've identified the tax amount and the installment that's been paid and the one that hasn't. If it was delinquent, we would let you know. And this also will tell you the land and improvement. So it's telling you how much the property land itself is worth and how much the improvements on the property are. And that kind of identifies if there is something on the property. Is there a structure? If you see improvements, that means there is a structure on the property. Number 3, it looks like this property has tax defaults. So this is saying they have prior year taxes. And we're going to give you, usually on a title report, they'll give you like a couple months worth, 2 to 3 months worth, so that we can kind of plan out for net sheets and figure out what's going to be owed on the properties. And if you guys have any questions, please feel free. Next page. And now this one, number 4 on the title report, is saying that this property lies in a Melrose area. So this is just explaining to you that yes, this property does have Melrose. 99% of the time, those are included in those property taxes, but we do give you a notation so that you can see that. Number 5 is saying a lien of supplemental taxes. This is another notation that's always going to be on our title reports. And what this is this is saying that we may not close escrow for another month, but the county tax collector may be in process of preparing a supplemental tax bill and it may show up. And if it does show up, then we will have to deal with it. So it's just kind of a disclaimer. So, and usually you have a supplemental tax bill that might come up if your seller recently purchased the property because it hasn't caught up with them yet, or somebody died on the property and that hasn't caught up and the county's assessing some kind of tax bill. So a new property, if it was a brand new property and they only bought it in the last year or so, you might get a supplemental tax bill that might come up. Or if they did work. So supplemental tax bills also are issued if they increase the value to the property. So if they did a room addition or something that increased the value, the county wants money. They will charge any way they can. Number 6 is an easement, 6 and 7. So we will always disclose if there's any easements on the property. Usually they're for utilities, PG&E, Comcast, things like that. Sometimes you have different kinds of ingress and egress, which are easements that will be on properties that are more in the country. So you might have your neighbor can access your property so that they can get to their property, things like that. And those are always good things just to look at when you do have a country property listing or a purchase on that. Mm-hmm.
There is people that bought a beautiful, nice backyard, and they spent over $200,000. It's swimming pool. They brought big palm trees up from Southern California in trucks. It was great. This was their paradise. And then 2 years later, PG&E knocks on the front door and says, "Hey, we're going to take down the fences in the back. We're going to exercise the right on the easement and put these underneath in the ground." So they were like, "What? Great." And they pulled up and looked at the show and tell report, and it did not show the easement that PG&E had. So there was a claim on that, and the title company had to pony up and find a different home for them, satisfy that, because that was the whole purpose of them buying that house with the big backyard, but they missed the easement.
And I know of a story in the same kind of situation, but probably about 15 years ago, there was the same situation in Dixon that someone went to buy the property. And the whole purpose was they wanted to put a pool, supposedly, in the backyard. They got the title report, and the title report did not have an easement on there. There was an SID drain. So they got the plans approved, the city approved it, everyone approved it, and the digger went to go out and they realized there's a drain in the middle of the backyard. So this is kind of some of those, you have clients that ask, why do I need title insurance? They think, oh, well, I don't want to pay that. Nothing's ever going to happen, things like that. That title insurance policy covered them because they missed it. The lender or the title company missed it. So title companies are human. We do miss things. I don't actually search the properties in that sense, but so like in this case, in that case, the title company, I think it was like Stewart Title or something like that, but they missed it. So the clients basically got paid the amount of the pool and probably more. They got basically compensated for the fact that they weren't able to put this pool in their backyard. So whether that was really the reason they bought it or not, but that's kind of why you buy title insurance. There's a lot of people that ask reasons why to buy title insurance. Like I could tell you guys kind of a little situation that I had on an escrow that could have been a huge issue. But this was probably about 5 years ago. I had a client, so you have to kind of follow the timeline. I had a client who bought the property in like 2011, bought it, purchased it cash, never did anything on the property. So he buys it. He was going to sell it in about 2018. So when they opened the escrow on the title report, we pulled up an old equity line from 2004. So he didn't buy the property in 2004. He bought it in 2011. Well, that was a prior owner. Well, the owner he bought it from bought the house in 2005. So that wasn't even his seller's loan. It was the loan of somebody from 2004. Well, that was around the time that the market kind of was ugly. Things happened. So title companies are very, very cautious when we see equity lines, because you can have an equity line and have a 10-year, 15-year draw period. So you can borrow against it for 10 years and then it becomes a fixed loan. Well, in 2000, I think it was 2014, which is right about the 10-year mark, there was activity on his property. That loan from 2014 had what's called an assignment recorded, which means that lender assigned that loan to a new company. So now that means that loan is active. So why is this loan active if that wasn't even your seller? It was 2 people before you owned it. So because he bought title insurance in 2011, when he went to close his escrow in 2018, that title company who he bought it from had to honor his policy. So he was able to sell his house. So he did not have to deal with it. Had he not bought title insurance, he would have had to go find that loan, which he doesn't have any access because he doesn't have their socials. He doesn't have authorization to talk to that bank. And he would have to clear it. He'd probably have to have a court proceeding, figure out how much is owed, pay it, and who knows how long that could take for him just to clear it. So it's kind of one of those things that even though the company that handled his purchase in 2011 didn't pick it up because they assumed maybe they missed it or thought it was paid, or maybe it was the same company that did it in 2005 that did it in 2004. He just basically got lucky in that case. But that's kind of an example of what one of the reasons. There's so many reasons why you need title insurance, but it's kind of like driving a car. Do you have car insurance? Something might happen, but maybe I'll be okay. So, but they're
insurance is the only insurance that once covers history of the property, so that you can enjoy the living, or all other insurances are dependent on whatever's going on in the future. So,
right. It's a very important thing. Okay. So number 8, covenants, conditions, and restrictions. You guys all know what those are? My description of it is you have a developer who has a community that he wants, and this is his idea of what he wants it to look like. He wants cars out front. He doesn't want garbage cans out front. He wants 2-story homes. It's his basically idea of this neighborhood. And do you guys know in order to change a CCNR, they have to be signed by the original person, or the entire neighborhood has to sign. So if that person is deceased, so if the CCNRs are super old and it's been a long time, typically you would have the entire like subdivision would have to agree to it, is kind of the way it's always had to be. But you know, CCNR too, there's CCNRs from years and years ago that had like race and discrimination. All those are out. So we used to send a disclosure a lot of times with CCNRs that said, if there's anything that talks about race disclosure, the United States made that go away. But they can't amend them because, again, the people who created them are no longer living. I mean, you have CCNRs sometimes in the 1800s, so you can't really get that amended. So
we live in a neighborhood in CCNR said that we could only paint our house earth tones. Yeah, crazy.
Yeah. So, and you guys know that, so some people get confused on this too, but if you live in a neighborhood, you have 100 homes, you have CCNRs, your CCNRs are enforceable. It is up to you as the owners to enforce them. If you live in a neighborhood that you guys all of a sudden have this pink house and it's ugly and nobody wants to see this ugly pink house, the entire neighborhood could actually sign and get them to have to change it. But it takes your entire neighborhood to have to do that. Whereas in other cases, you have a homeowners association. A homeowners association enforces rules, regulations, and the CCNRs. So it's kind of a little different. You have that kind of rule on it. So they can kind of like penalize you in those cases. But that's why you see a lot of older neighborhoods that kind of run down and become pink houses or lime green houses, things like that. Yeah. Or have weird
Tiffany?
flags out front. Yeah.
Tiffany?
Yes.
Can you do me a favor on Zoom? It's hard for us to hear the other people talking in the room.
Okay.
So if somebody asks a question or if Ben shares something, can you just reiterate what was said so that we can also hear it?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Absolutely. You're welcome. Okay. Next page. Oh, wait, am I on the wrong? This one. So up at the top, it says liens and charges for maintenance, homeowners association. So this is just a notation to you guys that the property does lie in a homeowners association. So in those cases, we will be contacting the HOA company. And 99% of the time, so you guys are aware, sellers are required usually to have to pay something up front. So if you have clients that are in an HOA, you do want to advise to them that immediately when escrow opens, they're probably going to have to pay for that, and that can range anywhere from $250 to $400 or $500. But it's good to let them know that ahead of time because sometimes they get a little freaked out when they have to pay that. So, and it can be credit cards sometimes because it's usually a company that we pay directly. And then number 9 is a deed of trust. So this is just saying that the client does have one mortgage for $550,000. And I strongly recommend that everyone always, again, looks at the title report and looks at the deeds of trust, because you, as an escrow officer, we see things on title reports that there might be a 2004 deed of trust or 2001 or 1999. we immediately know those are old and they're probably something we have to deal with and we need to clear. If they're more recent, it kind of looks like the client has one mortgage, but you might have, let's say this is 550,000 from 2020, but then they have a 300,000 from 2005. That's probably an issue that we need to clear. So it's always very, very good to look at those. And there's even people who have, let's say, a deed of trust for 550, but then they have two small ones. Maybe they have down payment assistance. Some people forget that they have down payment assistance, so they forget that they owe that. So it's kind of something to think about and remind and look at, because maybe they didn't let you know that when you did your statements with them, or the amounts they told you that was owed on the property. Number 10 is an abstract of judgment. That is usually means there's some kind of case for family law, either child support, spousal support. If you guys ever see that, I know a lot of clients sometimes freak out because they think, I don't have a judgment against me if it is from, let's say it was child support. Child support does not always just record a judgment because they're delinquent. They automatically record a judgment against someone if you pay spousal or child support. It does not mean you're delinquent. It just means you pay something. And that's a courtesy for the state that they tell title companies, hey, you better check with us to let us know if he's selling or buying or whatever they're doing, because we want to make sure if he owes money, he needs to pay it or she needs to pay it. So that's all that is. So sometimes I know clients will freak out when they see that. Next page. Here's again, it says another court order. So again, child support or spousal support. Number 12 is a tax lien. This one here is saying is probably this is the United States, which would be IRS, which is kind of, if you ever see IRS on a title report, that is an urgent, we need to act fast, because the IRS will require certain documents to be signed in order to communicate with them. Depending on your situation, that can be sometimes 45 days for them to acknowledge, and then 45 days they have to respond. So that can be 90 days. And that's not even worst case, and that's not even best case. Sometimes it can be really quick, and sometimes it can be a lot, which I know Amy knows that can be a long time we dealt with. And then number 13 is a mechanics lien. A mechanics lien means that something recently happened on the property. They did some kind of work on the property and someone did not get paid. So that's, if we ever see that, what that does is it tells us there's been some kind of work, and that creates a lien period. And our title company will then want usually the client to sign affidavits, let us know what kind of work has been done on the property. There's just a little more documentation that we have to get from your clients. So if you ever see that, and also we have to clear this. So if it is in fact owed, we have to get demands and releases. If it's already been paid, we still need to get a zero demand and a release. Number 14, this one is saying transaction contemplated. So this is basically saying that they want us to review this file for approval. And I would tell you that that would mean because the property has a mechanics lien. They want to know, is there work being done on the property? And then number 15 is just saying we have found various liens against certain parties and we need a statement of identity. This is another one of those items we need right away. My maiden name was Smith, so I know how common names can be. I actually, for many, many years, was on the OFAC list. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but that is like a money laundering for the United States, where they run people's names. And if they have you on the list, a lot of times it's Spanish names, Indian names, or just Smith. There was 3 Tiffany Smiths on there. And they could have been a money launderer. They could have been the cartel. They could have been something. So every time I would have lenders call me and want my middle name, I'd have to give them information because I was on the list. So it was like a red flag, which was kind of pain. So I was very glad to change my name, which I don't have to deal with anymore. Yes, very nice. It was a pain. I used to always have my middle initial on my signature line for that reason, because they would always add, there was a Tiffany N and like a Tiffany L and like a something else. So, but a statement of identity, we need those completed. And some people feel that it's a lot of information and it's private information, and they get a little bit hesitant to provide that information. And I try to explain to them, it's not that we're wanting this information because we want all your information. We're trying to eliminate the lien. So there could be a lien against T. Smith, or it might be Tiffany Smith with like my address, or it might be my name with my last four of my social, or it might have my driver's license, or it might have my child's name. So there's liens can be very vague, or they could have a lot more information. It could be T. Smith with my address and that's it, because that's all the person had when they put the lien out there. So the more information they can provide us, how we can rule it out. Sometimes there's like a spousal support lien that somebody has against somebody, but the ex-wife's name is the only thing that ruled it out that it wasn't him, because that wasn't his ex-wife's name. So if you ever see that, try to explain to your client, it doesn't mean that it's you. We're just trying to rule it out that it's not you. Because it always sounds better and more positive when you make it sound more positive to them. So next. And this is your lovely map. This is the map to the property. We usually at Fidelity will point to the property so you can see it. But do you guys understand how to read a map? Looking at this, where you have your book and page, and then you can find your actual property on here. So at the top it says 0123-45. So you're going to find the 45 section. But where's our APN number? So back on the page with the taxes, it has I'm wrong. It doesn't say it. Our how to read a prelim is fired. It doesn't have the right APN number on there. But you would take the book and the page and you would find your section, and then it would have the last 3 digits. You would find which one it is in that section. But your map is always going to be the location of the property, and then your legal description is going to describe where it is on this map. That makes sense. You guys have any questions? Scenarios?
I had a question, like on a map.
It takes to make the 20-pound report. So we have in our title department, we've got all these people that are doing the research. And so a lot of agents that open up title, as soon as they get the prelim, they just stick it right in the file. They don't even look at it. It is so important as soon as you get it to make sure that the spelling is right for the principals, that the address is right, the spelling of the street is right. These things are so important. And so when I see people that they get it and they put it away, and like, whoa. Because as soon as we get it in our office, the escrow officer is going to go through it. And when she sees something that's going to be a red flag, I used to have an escrow officer in Lafayette. And she used to read the title report. Then she would take out a pen and she would write things down. And then she would fax to the client. And then she would call the client. She goes, hey, I just sent you a love note. When your desk is clear, get the prelim out, get my love note, and I need you to see what we need to do to clear this pre so that it can close. So, and nowadays it's got email and text and stuff. Really fast, but it's so important to look at these things. So.
And another cool thing that Fidelity does, we have what's called Live Look. So when you receive the title report from our department, there's going to be a little blue link that says Live Look. And when you click on the link, it's going to bring you to a page that's going to basically highlight what everything means in the title report. So it's going to be color coded, and it's going to tell you if you have a lien or if you have a mortgage on the property, any taxes. It'll say there's HOA, or if there's solar, it'll tell you all these things and kind of point it out to you. So you can kind of, it's like a synopsis of the actual title report, which is nice. And on all of our title reports, if you click on any of the numbers, the blue numbers, it will pull up the document that it's referring to. So when your clients want a copy of that easement or the solar or that old deed of trust that is out there, they can actually look at it, or even the vesting. So you can look at the grant deed to the property, which is nice to be able to pull it technology these days.
Are there any questions in Zoom land?
I don't, what do you do? Oh, sorry.
That's just the
Oh.
presentation
Oh,
for online people.
I'm not very good at this. Sorry.
You're great.
No.
No questions in Zoom now?
Any questions in Zoom land? Ben's asking.
Are we gonna get, so I saw like on the notes that we're gonna get, it emailed to us. Do you guys have the emails of the participants who are on? Or are we gonna have to fill something out to get that sent to us?
Meaning
Must
like a copy of what we went over today?
Yeah,
Yeah, we can send you a copy of it.
thank you.
Okay, not a problem.
Also, I did
And-
have a question about the map.
Yes.
So I had a client who, we looked at the map and I was able to tell like just by where I was on the street, like where it was on the map, but there was an alleyway in the back. And so we were trying to figure out if that was like his portion, like if any of it, like, he was sharing it, like the alleyway with the next neighbor, or if it went. So we were wondering about that, and we never got an answer back from that title company.
Was that Dixon?
No, it's in
Dixon
Rio
has a lot of
Vista.
those. Oh, Rivista. Okay.
Yeah.
I can always look at it. If you want to send me the address, I can always take a look at it.
Okay.
It depends on the properties, really, how it's kind of transferred. If there was anything on the legal description describing it, or if it had a separate APN number, I can look at it different
Yeah,
ways.
it did have a separate APN number, and so we were trying to figure out if it was like secondary, like if that second part of the APN was the alleyway that belonged to him, or if any of it might belong to his neighbor that was a little bit further into the alley.
Right. If I could, I don't have a profile.
Tiffany, can you open up chat and put your name, spelling, your phone number, and email, so anybody in chat that wants
Yeah.
to get
How do I do that?
You just open up chat.
Oh, it went away. I'm going to send you guys my contact and I can always look it up for you and see what I can find. Okay. Oh, does that do everyone? Okay. So, I can't see. And then so I'm happy to look at anything you guys have if you want me to look it up and see what's on there, and I can take a look and see if I can figure it out. If I can't, I can always have my title officer look at it, and she usually gets back to me within what? Yeah. But she usually gets back to me within an hour, usually, which is really nice. So you're welcome. I hope I did okay, because I feel like sometimes I haven't done this in a while.
No,
I need to bring my own title report and do one, because I think I get lost looking at the note part of it.
And there are no stupid questions. We are here to partnership up with you guys and keep you guys safe and in the clear. And so there's no dumb questions. Feel free to pick up the phone and call Tiffany or email her, and we're here.
And I
to
do
support
encourage
you.
like any questions. I would rather you ask the question. I mean, if I don't know the answer, I can figure it out or find out. But even if another title company has it and you have a weird question you want to ask, it's fine. Like, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, you develop a relationship with your escrow officer like mommy. You just phone home. No dumb questions.
Not mommy.
Wants to take care of you. It's all good in your transaction. So thanks so much for having
Yeah,
us.
thank you guys.
Hey, Ben.
Yes.
Ben, if there's no more questions, did you want to share a little bit about the tools and things that Fidelity has to offer agents?
Yeah,
For
absolutely.
the different things? Now's your chance, Ben.
Here we go. Here we go. So Fidelity has got a couple of tools that I really, really love to share with different agents. And one of them is our Fidelity Agent NetSheet program.
So you can have it on your phone, and it's so easy to do buyer and seller net sheets. There's also so much great stuff that you can put on Instagram and on Facebook and constantly promoting yourself as well. So this is something that we provide to our clients to, again, come along and help you guys in growing your business. And I would love to share it with anybody. My phone number, if you guys call me, is 510 area code 414-1024. And I can actually text it right to you. So you can have it on your phone. You can also go to our webpage, which is fntsolano.com, and click on the Fidelity agent there, and it will see the device that you're on, a laptop, a PC, and it will pair the right software there. So if you're working on something, you can pull it up and you can actually print out flyers to send to your different clients, or you can print out things like putting in an address in this, and it will pull up near you, and it'll show from that open house that you're doing where the closest grocery store is, the closest gas station, where Starbucks is, the school district it's in. And it's so amazing. It's so simple to use. And so it's one of the things I really love to share, because it makes you look like $1 million in front of your clients when you're, what is bottom line? Bottom line, how much am I going to make if I sell this house? And you have it within seconds. You just tie in the price of the house, how much the loan payoff is, and then click enter, and boop, boop, boop. There's what they net at the close of escrow. So it's just so simple. I can put my phone number in here as well. I don't know how. Everyone.
There you go. Now you can-
Okay.
Oh, sure.
Cool, and enter. And then the other tool that I really like to share with people is the Fidelity Passport app. And this gives you 24/7 open deeds of trust, legal vesting, the history on the property. You can then, once you get the Fidelity Passport down, you can go to the App Store and get our Fidelity Title 1-2-3. And this is a mobile app, and you can actually open up the app, go in front of a house that you're looking at, take a picture of it on the app, and boop, 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 pulls up all the property profile information right there on your phone. Again, making you look like $1 million in front of your clients. So those are a couple of the tools that are free to you guys, and we would love to assist and help you guys with that. So give me a phone call and I can help you guys that are on Zoom. And then here, I think I've helped you guys in the past with it. So again, Amy, thank you for having us. We appreciate it. We definitely want to partnership up with you guys and help you on your transactions.
Perfect. Thanks for joining us today.
Great.
We really appreciate you guys joining us.
Thank you up there in Idaho. Wish I was there.
You do wish you were here.
I do. Country bumpkin at heart. Okay, you guys take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.